Happy holidays. This happens to be Christmas Day that I'm starting to work on this layout. It doesn't have anything to do with Christmas, but it does have to do with the year 2020. And I will be soon doing my wrap-up page for the year and starting in the new year. It was funny, last night I decided to just sort of look and see where I was. I'm figuring I hadn't done anything that I had planned to do for this year, but I had done some things that I had planned to take on for the year. It's kind of surprising. And then, of course, there were things that didn't happen at all, especially related to travel and stuff. So I'll deal with that in another layout. For now, it's fun to get back to scrapbooking. I just completed a mini album for my mom for her birthday. I'm not going to share it in a video. It's a little bit personal, but I did it sort of in record time to put together a lot of photos. I'd worked with these photos before, so I sort of knew, what I wanted to say about them, and it was really just about getting photos and not tons of embellishment, just really focusing on those. This page, though, is about me. It's actually about a lot of people because I made masks, and many of us made masks. Those of us who sewed got busy making masks back in the spring when they were hard to find, when there was a shortage of protective equipment for healthcare workers and for when people were just starting to wear masks. As I was typing up the journaling, I realized that for once, my husband and I were early adopters. We are never early adopters, but we were early adopters because we started wearing masks in March, and that was kind of uncommon here. It's still frustrating that there are so many people here who don't wear them, but that was something we really jumped into because we're never the first people to buy a new particular piece of electronics or computer software program or anything. Or applications. Yeah, I'm not even using the right term anymore. So we're just not the early adopters, but for this one we were, and I think that was a beneficial thing. I got started mask making because a friend of ours who's a nurse in California contacted me and asked about them because they were having trouble getting PPE, and I looked at patterns, I made a couple, sent them to her, and I was starting to see more and more information about this online. I found some patterns and some videos, and I ended up making a little over 200 masks, I think, that I donated to healthcare locations and businesses and family and friends. And I could make a lot more, but it got to the point where they were easy to find, so I kind of wrapped up my mask making operation. I did take some photographs, and I went ahead and I printed these ages ago. I just hadn't scrapbooked. This one I printed it in 2 sizes, and I think I'm going to use the larger size of me sewing. And then I have some of these masks, and this must have been some of my early ones because this is the ones when I was making the pleated kind. I ended up making the ones with the seam down the middle more towards the end, especially for family and friends. These were designed to go over a N95 kind of mask, and my husband has one of these that he wears a lot of times to customers' houses, so he does 2 layers of masking when he's out now with people. So what I want to do with these, I was going to do it like this, but I think that I'm going to put it here because I have this dead space in the photo, and I'll trim this down. And I've picked out some thickers for the page. I can either do these multicolored thickers or this blue. I thought went really well with some of the colors in the photos and what I'm wearing. It's just kind of small. I might vary the title depending too on which letters that I use. Sometimes with thickers you have to do that because you're running low on things. I still have quite a few of these. This was an old Schmelz collection that I've had for several years, but I've really enjoyed these, and I thought I'd used them quite a bit, but I still have a lot of them left. And then, of course, this is just typical thickers from American Crafts. In order to make my storage go a little easier, a couple of years ago, I cut the tops off of all the packaging, and they fit better into the drawer I have them in now. So I have no idea, what the names of any of these are. I didn't think it mattered. They're just thickers to me. Now, I also was looking for some small print paper to go with these small prints that are on the masks. And this is some paper that's supposed to be for card making, from Pink Paisley. It's Paige Evans' collection. If you don't follow her on Instagram, she does the most beautiful, beautiful layouts. They always seem to have a lot of pink in them, but they're just gorgeous layouts to look at, and she's out on Instagram. But these papers, I thought there were a lot of great colors in here, and I'm going to cut them up into small pieces as kind of like, cutting up fabric. I'm just trying to decide on the shape that I want to cut them, and maybe do a wide border down at the bottom and a narrow border at the top. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. This journaling, I went ahead and printed it out. I'd like to print it in a little bit larger print, but it's going to need a fair amount of space. And I actually might spread it out longer and run a long strip of journaling down here along with the long border. I don't know. Having it printed out kind of gives me an idea visually what I'm doing. Very often with journaling, I'll get a page done and then I'll go journal, and I'll realize I have not a lot of room for the journaling, so I'll end up writing a smaller amount. This morning I sat down and wrote all of this, and I'm glad I did, because I got a lot of information down here, and now I get to find a place to put it, because really that's what's important. I'm trying to tell the story, so I really shouldn't shortchange the story just to make the page look pretty, and I didn't want to do that in this case. I'm sure there'll be other pages about what's gone on this year, but this is just one I had some photographs of, and I thought, it's time to start telling the story. Right now, everybody feels like we will never forget this, that this year will never be forgotten. We're all hopeful for a better 2021. We know it's going to be difficult, at least in the first few months, maybe a long time. We just don't know. And we think it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. We don't know that. But the reality is, assuming, it is a once-in-a-lifetime event, we get our vaccines and we get moved forward and away from this in the next few months, in 10 years, we will remember a lot, but we will have still forgotten things. And if you have children and grandchildren, this is your opportunity to tell the story of what went on during this challenging time in our lifetime. So tell the story somehow, whatever you want to capture, whether it's stocking up on groceries or having to stay home all the time and what you did when you were at home. And as I said, I'm sure there'll be more pages on it, but this is just the first one. Okay, enough chat. It's time for me to dive in, cut the photos down, and start pulling out some papers here to make some type of border for this white background page. I'm going to go ahead and pick out my papers. This is a great technique for 6x6 papers. These are a little larger than that, but any of your small print designs. So I'm just pulling out things that appeal to me, things that I think will work well with the papers, things that I think will cut up and look good when they are cut into a smaller size, although at this point I haven't decided for sure the size or the shape. And I'm going through some of my scraps and just seeing if there's anything else in the scraps that I think will work. A few more pieces there. I think that blue flowered paper is actually what went with those one set of thickers. It's multicolored thickers. Okay, so we're getting our papers, and I'm going to start trimming those down. I'm trying a 2.5 inch square, and I decided that was too large. I'm going to turn them into a diamond shape, and a 2 inch is going to be the best size. So I'll need to trim all the papers to 2-inch squares, and then up at the top I'll probably just do a narrower border up there. Taking a look at the thickers, I decided that the ones I had out were not the right color, and I needed something a little simpler, a little bit lighter. So I found these kind of beige ones. They're going to have to lay, though, on some of the paper, the pattern paper, because the white paper is just going to be too light for them. Now, I did make a mistake here. I put some adhesive across. This is ATG adhesive. I don't like the ATG gun, so I just use it by itself. And I figured out that what I really need to do is draw a line. This would be a good use for my old basic gray crafting mat, but I don't have it out. So I have a line here so I can keep my points lined up, and I can end up with a nice pieced border at the bottom. but I put too much adhesive down, and I'm going to end up having to cover that up later on, because I, like here at the bottom, I go ahead and put it all the way across the bottom, and then I didn't end up putting squares all the way across. I created like a 3-row border, and so there's going to be some empty spots. And I could not find my eraser that gets rid of adhesive. I don't think the thing works all that great anyway, so but I don't know what happened to it. So what I have to do is actually cover some of that adhesive with extra white paper that I just cut into little triangles. And there's my little triangles, and I'm just going to stick those in where I have adhesive. You can't see it on the screen, the adhesive, but you can see those little triangles, and those are going to cover up the adhesive, and you'll never know they're there. They just blend into the white background paper. And up at the top, I want a border of just a few strips. I think I cut this 1.5 inches wide. And again, I'm putting a line down so that I can get those straight, although it doesn't work very well. I end up getting them a little crooked and having to adjust them. Hey, I made a few mistakes on this layout. I guess I'm a little rusty. Yeah, I get this done and I look at it and I'm like, that is not straight. So I tried to straighten it. And when I tried to straighten it, and ATG adhesive sticks really, really well, and it tore the paper some. And the gist of it is I end up having to put one of the photographs over top of the paper to cover my mistake, because I couldn't really cover this one any other way. And that's fine. It works. Right. But I do have a background now for these light colored letters. They're kind of a light cream color, and they will fit then on there. And it's the title Mask Making and Operations, and then I've got places that I want to put all my journaling. And it's going to be spread out over 3 areas. For embellishment, I thought it would be fun to use elastic. Since elastic was so hard to find when making masks, it became the big thing was to try to figure out where you could order elastic from, or you could find it. And so I'm going to make an embellishment using elastic and some buttons. I don't use buttons very often. I did not use buttons on my masks. I know some people made some kind of things to attach the mask to with buttons to make them easier to wear than rather around the ears. I never got to doing that, but the buttons will be a cute embellishment since it's sewing related. So I picked out some colors of small buttons, intending to put them up there at the top of the page, and they're going to end up somewhere else, and you'll see that a little bit later on. And then I have all this journaling that I need to cut down. Since I'd already typed it before, I just need to mark on the paper where, generally what size that I need and where I want to, separate the paragraphs to create 3 sections of journaling. Okay, so here is our fun page about mask making. There was a lot of journaling, so what I ended up doing, to kind of consolidate a little bit, I chose a font that the letters were more narrow. I think it was Century Narrow, to try to get as much in here. And I did a little bit of editing to try to cut out a few extraneous words. I'm not really great at that, but I kind of did that a little bit to cut it down some. The other thing I did that I think helps it to still be important and relevant, but to disappear, or at least to not take over the page, especially since it's scattered out in so many places, is to change the color of it to a gray color instead of my usual black print. I usually do black or brown, depending on what the other colors of the layout are, but this time I think the gray still shows up, blends in with all the rest of the colors, and works, especially since it's scattered. And then, we have our title up here, and instead of those buttons there, I ended up putting them down here. Right as I was turning off the camera the last time, I started moving them down here, and I thought, that's exactly where they need to go. So I just pulled out one more and kind of finished off that design down at the bottom of the page. I have my elastic embellishment there, and that wraps up the mask making operation page. I still have lots of fabric left. I could make more masks. As I was ordering the last bits of fabric, I tried to pick things that were generic enough that I could use them for something else in case, this mask making came to an end. We are obviously still wearing masks and still going to be wearing them for quite some time, but it's so easy to buy them. There are so many people selling them and places to buy them. If you're looking for the home variety, there are plenty of people on Etsy that sell them. And they're fairly easy to make if you're a seamstress or you have a sewing machine and would like to sew, to do them. But and I did a video some time ago, back in the spring, about how I go in about making my masks and what I was ended up doing with them. So you can take a look at that if you're interested in more information on making masks. As I say, this is something that will probably be with us for quite some time. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the page. I enjoyed getting back into scrapbooking. It was fun.